Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in today. Today I want to break down that recent incident in the South China Sea. There's a lot of attention on it. Two US Navy aircraft went down in the water, and it was just weird because it was about 30 minutes apart. It was said to be during routine operations on the USS Nimitz, and the best news of all is that all 5 crew members have said to have been recovered safely and that they're in stable condition. That's the biggest thing of this whole incident, but I'll be giving you a breakdown of those systems that were involved. But the location and timing, it's definitely natural to wonder what happened because the Navy's operations are very critical in this region. If you haven't noticed, the South China Sea is a hotbed right now, with China putting a lot of pressure towards Taiwan. They're blasting J-35s off of their Fujian carrier, so they're really making sure that Taiwan is feeling the heat, and the US Navy is ramping up operations as well. As you can see, when operations are ramped up, things can always happen, but in this video we'll cover step by step the facts that I know so far, and we'll go a little bit deeper on the aircraft and the systems that were involved, how the rescues could have gone down, and again, some of that will be speculation. There'll be a full investigation, so make sure to tune into that. We'll also talk about the survival training that helps crews like this make it through some of these wild situations. I've done fighter jet survival training for the water, where you basically parachute in to water. You have to survive, you have to get out from under your parachute, you have to get in the life raft, and oh, by the way, you have to do it with one arm tied because the chances of suffering an injury during an ejection are extremely high. So we'll go through that training, what those F-18 crews likely had to do to get themselves into the boat and then get rescued by another helicopter, and how that helicopter crew likely survived based on some of that intense, wild training. So let's start with this sequence of events based on the US Pacific Fleet's initial report, what we know so far. So this occurred on Sunday, October 26, 2025, during standard training exercises in international waters near the Spratly Islands. The Spratly Islands are a heavily disputed area in the South China Sea, with China basically walking in and saying they're the big swing and you know what. Hey, we own this place. This is ours now. They're like that male dog just walking around the fire hydrant. Oh, mine, mine, mine. But the first incident involved an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter. That's a versatile multi-mission aircraft, and that's designed primarily for anti-submarine warfare and surface search missions. It's equipped with advanced sonar systems that can detect subs from miles away. Very powerful aircraft, very good for tracking ships, and it's also got weapons. So this thing carries a big stick. It's got the AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. It also has MK-54 torpedoes. I mean, a helicopter with torpedoes, that's better than sharks with freaking laser beams. This helicopter is rad. It's awesome. Too bad we lost one, but again, the crews survived so they can jump in another bird and make it happen. But that helicopter itself can hit speeds up to 267 knots, which is very fast for a helicopter. It can also stay airborne for about 4 hours on a full tank of gas. It carries a crew of 3 or 4, depending on the mission that it's going to do. It's the eyes and ears of the Carrier Strike Group. Really, that's how I think of this thing right now. It's the brain of the Carrier Strike Group, going out, checking for threats, seeing if there's anything out there that's going to try to take down the Carrier Strike Group. So it hunts threats below the waves, which is one of the biggest things, and then it coordinates with fighters overhead or other assets that could also come in and take out those submarines, those ships, drones, etc. This thing is a highly capable helicopter. The MH-60R, it entered service in 2006, and it's been upgraded over the years with better avionics, stealth features, so all the things that you would want to evade enemy radar while also passing information back and syncing up with the Aegis combat system, which a Carrier Strike Group looks at as its AI brain basically, and this helicopter is one of the main channels of information flowing into that Aegis system and then right back into the Carrier Strike Group. And to me, this helicopter itself is one of the main reasons why carriers can operate safely in contested areas like the South China Sea, where at the drop of a hat, things could go kinetic, things could go hot instantly. So this helicopter is extremely survivable and very capable and helps with the overall survivability of the Carrier Strike Group. But at around 2:54 p.m. local time, that Seahawk helicopter, it was from Squadron 71, known as the Rattlers, and experienced an emergency that led to an unplanned landing in the water. There were 3 crew members on board, the pilot, the co-pilot, and a sensor operator. Search and rescue teams also from the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group responded basically immediately, and they recovered the crew with minor injuries, which is a huge win for the entire Carrier Strike Group. So hats off to those rescue teams. That's huge. But then, if that wasn't enough, we just lost a helicopter helicopter in the drink. 30 minutes later at 3:24 p.m., an A-18F Super Hornet encountered an issue that made it have to ditch into the water as well. The Super Hornet is a twin-engine, two-seat fighter, and that's a mainstay of the naval air wing. This thing is highly capable. To me, this is the backbone. This is really the workhorse of the air power when it comes to naval strike packages. The F-18 is what gets the amount of numbers and quality up into the air to take down any type of enemy targets that are needed, including air targets, ground targets, cruise missiles. I mean, this thing is highly capable. But this version, the F model, it adds a second crew member, so it has a weapons systems officer, and that's very similar to the F-15E Strike Eagle that I flew. If I hadn't mentioned I'm a pilot yet, you always know that it's coming. But the F-15E had a WISO in the back, a weapons systems operator. The F-18F has a RIO, but basically the same job in the back, running all the sensors, potentially also sometimes running the air-to-air radar depending on how low the aircraft is. If the pilot's flying incredibly low, let's say below 500 feet, you'll usually pass the radar back to the back seat so that they then operate the air-to-air radar and you can focus on outside, not hitting the ocean, not hitting rocks. And this jet is ideal for very complex strikes because you have that weapon systems operator in the back, that RIO in the back, who's back there with the targeting pod, looking at targets, getting PID, positive identification from miles away, very far away, basically reading license plates and figuring out what the target is and making sure it's the correct target that you're going up against. That's why this platform, one of these jets, is a super highly capable platform that makes it ideal for complex strikes. And if that wasn't enough, it can fly at high speed, over Mach 1.9, faster than the speed of sound by a long shot. It can carry 17,000 pounds of ordnance. That's just fun to say. 17,000 pounds of ordnance, and that includes air-to-air, air-to-ground. This thing's loaded to the teeth. It really is one of the best air assets in the entire U.S. inventory, in my opinion, and that spans between the Air Force, the Navy, the Marines. Highly capable. The Super Hornet is an amazing aircraft. I've gotten flying one, and just from what I discovered from that flight is it's very stable, so very good in dogfights, and it's very user-friendly when it comes to dropping air-to-ground weapons. It also carries the AIM-120. That's an air-to-air missile that's used for dogfights, so definitely good in dogfights, but even better further away. So you're further away from the fight, you want to get a long-range missile off, the AIM-120 is your go-to, and that F-18F carries a load of those things. And then the JDAM, that is a precision-guided bomb for ground targets, and that thing is GPS capable, and the combat radius of the F-18 is really big. It's over 1,000 nautical miles, depending on what the F-18 would be doing, so that means without refueling, this thing can cover some distance, but the South China Sea is massive, so even though this thing can go almost 1,000 miles with that combat radius, still the South China Sea is so massive that it just presents a lot of challenges. Now, we don't know the exact reason why they had to ditch yet. That'll all come out later down the line. But this thing's got an advanced ASO radar, it's got an electronic warfare suite, and it's got the ability to integrate with drones, and that's probably one of the biggest things when it comes to the Navy, potentially launching CCAs, combat collaborative aircraft that can team up with F-35s. But the F-18F, that two-seater, is uniquely suited for that job because you could have the weapons systems operator in the back, RIO, same thing. You could have them operating those drones. Think of touchscreens where they're like, okay, this drone, attack here. This drone, attack here. That's the capability of having that two-seat platform, which is why I think the two-seat platform is one of the mainstays of air power. The F-18F and the F-15E, just very highly capable jets. So that makes it potentially the quarterback in the skies of modern air power, and it does it better than pretty much every jet out there. Over 800 Hornets have been built, and it's going to keep serving. In my opinion, it's going to keep going, even though the F-35C is a huge part of naval air power. The F-35C can be a little more of the quarterback. The F-18s are so capable that I think they're going to be flying for decades alongside the F-35. Again, just my opinion. The one that went in the drink, though, that strike fighter, that F-18, it was from Squadron 22, the Flying Deuces. So the pilot and the weapons systems officer went into the drink. They ejected safely, and they were recovered very swiftly thanks to the on-scene assets being so close right there with the Nimitz. And these two are high-value assets operating from the USS Nimitz, which is a nuclear-powered supercarrier. So a little background on the carrier itself. It was commissioned in 1975, and it's currently on an extended deployment because the South China Sea isn't cooling off anytime soon. But this could possibly be the last deployment of the Nimitz before it's decommissioned. It's right now set to be decommissioned in 2026. All those assets teamed up, just making it happen. What a very capable strike group this is. But events like this, they definitely trigger pause for the whole aviation community in the military, but specifically for that air wing operating off of the carrier, because you got to pause and make sure that everything is being done safely. So likely that was done. the pause is probably over right now. And then the carrier went back to resuming normal activities later that evening. And those are the reports that I actually found, is that the activities, the normal sorties are being conducted now again. But that's pretty normal. If there's an incident, basically you quickly look and you see what that incident could have been caused from. You relay that to higher leadership, and then they give the green light, knowing that, yeah, this is a very rare situation. This is a one-off. It's not something that's wrong with the entire fleet. So let's start flying again. And the fact that they are resuming normal operations tells me that likely this is just a really weird scenario that happened. Maybe just a very strange coincidence for two of these aircraft to go in the drink that close together. But one of the standout stories to me is how quickly and effectively the rescues happen. I mean, as soon as I read the story and I saw that all 5 crew members were back on deck in stable condition before the day was even over, it made me just really tip my hat to the rescue crews. And in a carrier strike group like the CSG-11, the Nimitz that's out there, search and rescue is a well-oiled machine. They're basically going through the paces every single day, preparing for missions just like this. They're doing training. So they're putting someone out there, probably the unlucky person in the squadron who drew the short straw. Hey, you're going to be the rescue dummy today. You put them out there, you go out and rescue them, and you do that over and over and over again, so that when something like this happens, it's really no big deal. It's basically, you know, this is just another Tuesday. We're going to just knock this out because we understand how to do it, because we've done it so many times. And the go-to helicopter for that job is the MH-60R Seahawk. And that's often called the Nighthawk. And that variant is specifically tailored for combat search and rescue, for vertical airdrops, and for medical evacuation. So this is really an all-in-one, basically a jack of all trades, badass helicopter in my opinion. And it's got a very beefy hoist system that can lower rescue swimmers or baskets up to 600 feet down. 600 feet, that's insane. So no waves are gonna compete with that. 600 feet down is insane. It's also got advanced FLIR sensors for spotting people in the water at night during rough seas. And it's got room for an entire rescue team, including divers and medics. The MH-60S can hover steadily over the waves, basically sit up there, be the eyes in the sky, finding the people that need to be found. It can deploy from the carrier's deck in minutes. It can even refuel mid-flight if it needs to stay on station longer, which is just awesome for situations like this, just in case you needed that. So President Trump also commented that he didn't think that this was foul play. He said a comment that was very interesting to me. He said this is potentially bad fuel. So maybe he got some quick report on that, because he said it's very unusual that this would happen. And it is. 2 aircraft going down simultaneously. So the bad fuel thing, let's talk a little bit about that. I don't know if that's the case, but we'll find out here soon. But assessing the focus, we'll talk about JP5. That's specialized jet fuel, and it's used on carriers. JP5 is a kerosene-based fuel. So this stuff is like wild. It's just basically rubbing alcohol on steroids. It's got high flash points, so it's safe for storage in the ship's fuel tanks, but contamination can happen to fuel. And we don't know if it happened in this case. I got to emphasize that. There'll be a full investigation, but there has been instances that I've heard of on land of contaminated fuel happening, with some pipes breaking that transport the fuel or something like that. But water, sediment, microbes, all these different things can cause problems for aircraft if it gets into the sensitive parts of those jet engines, like clogging filters, can reduce combustion. This is a known risk for all aviation, but it's specifically in maritime ops. And you can think of how crucial it is and how hard it might be to find fuel out where they are right now. They're operating out in austere conditions, so they're going into allied ports, but they're going to these ports that likely have rigorous testings and standard testings on the different fuel that's being put in the jets. But there has been issues where the fuel has been contaminated, but the Navy tests for this. So the Air Force tests for it as well, basically daily, to make sure that the fuel isn't something that's going to choke up a jet engine. But there have been engine issues before. F-35 suffered some engine issues that were potentially from bad fuel in 2018, and that led to some improved filtration protocols to keep that from ever happening again. And then interestingly enough, China's foreign ministry offered humanitarian assistance. You know, isn't that kind of funny? But they're basically like, hey, we'll come and help out. Can we just take a peek inside the F-18? Or can we actually keep that? If we scoop it off the bottom of the ocean, can we just kind of keep it? We'll keep it safe for you, and we'll give it to you when your deployment's done. So now let's talk a little bit about the intense survival training that these Navy crews go through that help them survive. So we'll start with the helicopter crews. For anyone who's going to go fly the MH-60R Seahawk, water survival is a huge deal. I mean, anybody in the Navy, it's a huge deal. But there's a high chance of ditching into the ocean with a helicopter, way higher probably than any other platform. So all aircrew must complete aviation water survival training every 4 years at one of Navy's 8 different bases. I'm sure when those times come up, they're probably like, can I just call in sick for this? So they go through everything at these cold water training sessions, everything from the physiology to how water shock can hit you in seconds, and then how drills in the pool can save your life by being basically dunked into a helicopter underwater escape training pod, or a Hewitt, and that's where crews practice escaping a submerged helo, and it's probably one of the most wild training you can ever imagine, because they strap into mock cockpits, they get flipped upside down underwater, they have to unbuckle, clear the cabin, get the doors open if there's doors on it, and then surface, often in full flight gear, which weighs you down. It's disorienting. Sometimes you don't know which way is up, which way is down, but this builds the muscle memory that you're gonna need if you're in that high stakes situation. And the Navy also does what's called drown proofing. So you basically float on your back for 10 minutes without touching the edge of the pool. You tread water blindfolded. You use your flight suit as a flotation device by inflating the sleeves with air. There's all kinds of different techniques. There's different swim strokes, like efficient swim strokes, and then the signaling devices. You train on that as well. Dive markers, flares, deploying life rafts from the helo emergency kits. All these different things are hugely important, and they definitely aided in the safety and survival of these crews. I really have no doubt about that. All right, let's shift to the F-18 crew. That 2 crew in the F-18, their training is definitely as rigorous, but it's tailored to high-speed ejections over water, and this is similar to the training that I went to through the Air Force for the F-15E, and it can be brutal because the forces that happen to you when you eject, the G's that you pull, 15 G's sometimes, that's gonna cause some what's called flailing injuries, especially if you're ejecting at high speed, which is why when you go through this training, when you hit the water in your parachute, they want you to get into your raft with one arm. Every Super Hornet pilot in the Navy and every Wizzo goes through the aviation physiology program, and they go through naval survival training units to help them know exactly what to do when you get into an ejection seat water survival situation. And that starts with ground school. So G-forces, don't G-lock. What happens to your body when you're flying over water, because you can get spatially disoriented very easily because you got dark blue sky, dark blue ocean. So they go through all those different things. And then they talk about what it looks like if you have to blast off in that ejection seat, going 200 feet per second into the water. Then they move to the pool for some underwater drills where they simulate the canopy jettison, the seat separation, parachute deployment, and then you hit the water. There's the potential that now that parachute is gonna try to keep you under the water. So you've gotta be able to find a seam and then get yourself out from underneath that parachute. That's one of the biggest things, because ejection at low altitude, it means slamming into the sea at a very high speed, and you got to train your body position to know exactly what to do. You got to keep your limbs tucked in so that they're not getting flailed or hit as you hit the water, and then you have to be able to inflate your survival vest. Those should go off automatically, but there's a chance they don't, and you got to know how to do it. And then once you get in the water, now you got to get that big radio out and make sure you can get in contact with helicopters as soon as possible, while you're also thinking about, can I get into my boat? Is my boat even around here? You basically have this little life raft that expands upon ejection right before it hits the water, and you have to crawl into that thing, and it's just very hard to do. Think about seawater. You've got like a canvas type material, you've got all your flight gear, and then doing it with one arm is definitely not an easy day. But the big thing is just stay calm, center your nervous system, and know that your training will kick in and help you survive. So that is likely exactly what these crews did to help them survive, and I'm very proud of them, proud of the work that they've done, proud of the Navy for that awesome training. So hats off to everybody in this situation. Very grateful that all the crews that ejected and bailed made it out. Hats off to all of them. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen in the South China Sea as training ramps up, as we see what China does? Would love to hear your comments on this video or ideas for other videos. Throw those in the comments below. Would love to hear that. And hey, the best compliment you can give me is just watch this video right here. When you watch this video right here, helps the channel grow exponentially, and I would just greatly appreciate it. So I'll see you on this video right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.